Yo, what's good, everybody? And today we are starting a brand new series as we are in pre-draft mode right now. We are officially a little over a month away from the NFL draft, so I need to get into the GM seat and basically draft your dynasty. So what this means is I'm going to be going through each and every day, maybe once or twice, in one of the 32 NFL teams, and I will be drafting for them post free agency, or at least the initial wave of free agency. Make sure you leave in the comments below your favorite team that you want me to draft, and I'll make sure to get to them next. But today, we're going to be talking about the needs and the draft strategy that the Minnesota Vikings, should take. So, talking a little bit before I get into it, just on the PFF screen, the mock draft simulator, what have the Vikings done in free agency thus far? I mean, they've lost out on QB Sam Darnold, of course. They're moving forward with JJ McCarthy as the main guy. There was talk about whether or not Aaron Rodgers would be coming there. I think those talks have stalled up to this point. Since then, they lost Cameron Bynum, big time safety, young safety with a lot of upside. I felt like that was a little bit of an L. They lost out on Byron Murphy Jr. Or sorry, not Byron Murphy Jr. They lost out on Stephon Gilmore. They still have Byron Murphy. And they also lost out on such as Jerry Tillery, Jihad Ward. And they also lost out on Dalton Risner and Cam Robinson, which was a big deal because that O-line, they were mainstays of that O-line. They are pretty well set up to compete. They have a lot of nice pieces on that team, and they have a lot of weapons. So it's going to be interesting to see, what I kind of do with their draft, with their mock draft, and see what a retooling would look like for them when it comes to the secondary. They gave up a lot of passing yards last year, one of the most in the NFL, and that's where a lot of their defensive woes came from because that front seven was so good. So let's see. Here we are on the PFF mock draft simulator. We are utilizing the Vikings at pick 24 for all 7 rounds. They only have 4 picks in this draft. We're going to start the draft right now. So here we go. We have a lot of interesting choices here. James Pierce Jr. is an amazing edge rusher. Even though he would be great and explosive for this front 7, I don't think that he's exactly what we need. I'm looking at more like a guy like Walter Nolan. He's a run stopper primarily, but he's not bad in the pass rush game either. And he's a guy that can really shore up the rest of this interior defensive line for the future. We have Javon Hargrave now, and Harrison Phillips is also there, but we are doing this not only for depth, but to make sure that that front 7 is as stout as possible, because that's what it was last year. So I'm thinking for that reason that we go Walter Nolan. There were other guys there, such as Darius Alexander, who's also been a riser over the course of this this pre-draft process. Derek Harmon's there, but Walter Nolan. Let's just go. BPA at that position, I think. And like they say, he's not the most physically gifted, but he has a high floor, and he's a really great run stopper, which is something that the Vikings need to continue to hang their hat on, as they do stop the run really well. The pass was more of the problem last year. So let's go Walter Nolan. Continue to go along with his defensive identity. Brian Flores is going to do a great job coaching him up. And now we have here, it's interesting because Jared Wilson is here. Could he maybe play more on the guard position? That's an interesting idea. We don't need another weapon, that's for sure. Don't need to waste one of our 4 picks on that. Deone Walker was here. We took Nolan last pick, though. I'm thinking we just go safety depth at this point in the draft, just because we need it. Harrison Smith is aging, as I said, and you have Joshua Metellus, who was great in the run, but at the same time he wasn't so great in coverage. So I think you don't really pass Harrison Smith and his aging self. You don't have a real answer at free safety, and you don't have a real long-term guaranteed answer at the strong safety position either. If you want to go with Metellus, that's fine. If you're a Vikings fan and you know more than me, and you think Metellus is the future, at the very least you need an option for the future at free safety. And Makuba is one of those hybrids who he could play really either because he's good in the run as well. You know, his missed tackle rate is a little bit messed up, but he's a guy that, you know, he plays deep most of the time, but he can also play in the box as well. So either way you want to kind of slice it, Makuba seems like a really great pick here at round 3, pick 97. In my opinion, he's not going to fall that far. That is immense value for a guy like Andrew Makuba to add to your safety, not only safety depth for this year, but also be one of your safeties for the future. Great option right there. Round 5, pick 139. Last 2 picks of the draft for the Minnesota Vikings. Now is kind of at the point. Let's see, because O-line is probably pretty picked over by now. You have Seth McLaughlin as like a center here, and could he be a guy that plays guard in the NFL? He won the nation's best center award. So could he still play on the interior? Just not as a center. Could he play left guard? You have Chase Lunt, kind of a more of a low floor, high upside pick coming out of UConn. 6'8", 6'7", 6'8". You know, he's a guy that could play, maybe moved around. He seems pretty versatile. But then you also kind of look to the halfback position. Bashal Tuden is a guy here who is very high upside as well. Lower floor because, you know, he's 5'11", so he's not that short, but he plays with like as if he has a smaller frame. The way he plays in game is if he has a smaller frame. I think he's a guy though that you kind of go for here because he had a great combine. He had some amongst the best intangibles in the class for the running backs that did participate in the combine. And so that's kind of what you want at your RB3, just an absolute athlete. And that's what he is. And he's going to play with grit as well. Coming out of Virginia Tech. Let's see. He ran 1150 yards last year. His original first year, he ran 1370. You know, he's a guy. I think you go for him because Aaron Jones is your bridge running back right now. He's not going to be there forever. I see him as more of just a bridge running back until either Jordan Mason or whoever you draft later in the draft as your RB3 breaks out in camp and in practice. So I could definitely see him as a high upside guy that you can afford to spend on, spend a 5th round pick on, especially for his type of intangibles. So I go Bashal Tuden, and he could potentially be your running back to the future if he adjusts well to the system. All right, lastly, pick 187, and you need a left guard. So we need to pick one of these guys, one of these big boys right here. You have Dylan Fairchild from Georgia, 6'5", 315. Interior depth with consistent pass protection skills. That's what you need if you're the Vikings. But let's check here. Is there anybody else that we... Clay Webb from Jacksonville State. He has short arms. That's why he would be more playing on the interior. And mediocre strength caps the ceiling in the pass protection. You need a guy who could potentially start day one, in my opinion. You need a guy who can start day one because you have Brandl there, who, in my opinion, just can't be trusted. You need to complete this O-line, and I think you take more of the bigger 300 plus pound option as opposed to Clay Webb, who's 290, 6'3", on the smaller side, more of a project, is not going to be ready day one. And I'm not saying Dylan Fairchild can't, right? We're in round 6 here, guys. But we need to trust in whatever we can and answer the position just because it's responsible to do so. So Dylan Fairchild is the pick for me here. Analyzing the draft, they gave us a B+ grade overall. They said Walter Nolan was an A- pick. I think so too. if you need an answer to this interior defensive line for the long term, he's going to be a great option. Could be your defensive tackle of the future, and at the very least serves as depth for this year, high upside depth. Same thing goes for Andrew Makuba and Bashal Tuden. Both could be your starter day one potentially. Tuden a little bit less likely, but Makuba absolutely. And at the very least, he's going to serve as depth that could be high upside for the future. Dylan Fairchild, they gave a D minus. I mean, we're kind of playing with the hand that we were dealt there. So, in my opinion, this is still a good pick. I think that this will, at the very least, be responsible and answer a potential situation at left guard. At the very least, maybe you look for that in the trade market over time, or you look for that continuing on into the offseason to pick up a cheap left guard who could really complete that offensive line for you. But I think this is the way for the Vikings to be able to lean into their strengths, continue being good in the run game, especially on the front seven aspect, and then Andrew Makuba, who isn't bad in the run game, but he plays really insane coverage. And he could play either safety position in the NFL if he puts on a little bit of weight, in my opinion. And then Bashal Tuden, potentially your halfback of the future, at the very least, a serviceable RB3 for this year, with Aaron Jones being the bridge. All right. Well, let me know what you thought about this Draft Your Dynasty episode. I'm just getting into the swing of things and polishing exactly what I want to do. Maybe I didn't talk about the needs enough, let me know, but I did talk about every single NFL team, all 32 in free agency, how they did and how they addressed their needs and what their needs still are. And now for a lot of these teams, this is an exciting series that I wanted to do because it's about how they draft now. They did their job in free agency. The Vikings themselves did so. And now it's about how they draft. Unfortunately, they only have 4 picks compared to other teams who have a lot more. But let's just see what happens. And I appreciate y'all watching. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe. Follow me on all socials in the description. And yeah, comment down below your team so I can get to them next. Peace.